What's up, YouTube fam? It's your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 times, and I'm back with another video. In this episode of Hood Tales, I'll be telling the story of Angel Bumbus, a young mother who was convicted of a heinous crime 10 years after it happened. She would have been 13 years old. But do they have the right person? Before we get into this video, welcome if you're new here to our channel. Please feel free to subscribe. Click that notification bell to get notified every time we upload. If you're rocking with the content, smash that like button. Share this video with everyone you know. Make sure you watch until the end to hear the full story. All right, let's jump right into it. So who is Angel Bumbus, and what was the heinous crime she is accused of committing? Angel Bumbus was born on March 3rd, 1995 in Tennessee. According to sources, Angel's mother had her when she was very young. And as for her father, Angel said he was not in her life early on. Angel described herself as quiet and shy. She said she didn't have a lot of friends and mostly stayed to herself. Growing up, Angel faced many challenges in her childhood as her mother was incarcerated when she was just 6 years old. Angel's mother was in prison on escape charges and firing a weapon at a deputy that caused serious injury. Angel went to live with her grandparents after that. Angel's mother wasn't the only one to have been to jail in her family. Several of Angel's family members had run-ins with the law and were incarcerated at one point or another, including at least 2 of her brothers and her grandmother, Shirley Bumbus, who Angel lived with. Angel, who appeared on the A&E TV show Accused, Guilty, or Innocent, said that she wasn't harmed or anything while she lived with her grandparents, but she said she never really felt loved either. When Angel was 16 years old, she left with a friend and started a new life in Kentucky. By 2018, 23-year-old Angel was the mother of 2 children and a student at Jefferson Community and Technical College in Louisville, Kentucky. She was set to start the nursing program in August of 2018. Angel and her children had a very bright future ahead of them. But suddenly, Angel's plans for her future would be put on pause. In 2017, Angel failed to appear for a traffic ticket and was arrested on that warrant. Her fingerprints were taken and put into the system. What Angel didn't know was that she would be arrested in 2018 after her prints came back as a match to fingerprints linked to a cold case crime that happened 9 years prior in her hometown of Chattanooga, Tennessee. Angel was charged with felony first-degree hit and aggravated robbery. The crime would have happened when Angel was just 13 years old. Let's dive into the heinous crime Angel is being accused of committing. It was January 16, 2009, in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Linda Bonner returned home from work and found her husband, 68-year-old Franklin Bonner, known as Cookie, in their home, duct taped to a table and chair with duct tape over his face, mouth, and nose. Franklin wasn't breathing. Linda frantically called 911. When officers arrived at the home on Enterprise Lane, it was in chaos. It appeared that Franklin Bonner's life had been taken during a robbery gone bad. According to Chattanoogan.com, a next-door neighbor to the Bonners for 17 years said he was sitting in his easy chair watching TV and heard someone ringing his doorbell and banging on the door at the same time. He said it was Linda Bonner, who was hysterical and in a panic. The neighbor said he got his weapon and went over to check to see if anyone was still inside the Bonner's home. He said he touched the neck of Mr. Bonner and got no pulse. Linda Bonner would later testify that she came home from her job at Goodwill Industries for a brief lunch that day. She said her husband was ironing because they had been invited to a birthday party that evening. She said someone in a restaurant drive-thru line ahead of her had taken too much time, so that left her with just a short time to eat. She said she left quickly. According to reports, Ms. Bonner said she returned home after work and found her husband's car still there. She said she was surprised because he should have been on the route to pick the numbers up. She said he did that 7 days a week with the results tied to the Illinois lottery. Sources say Franklin was known as the lottery man around town. He was known to have run numbers in the neighborhood, according to ABC News in Chattanooga, and he would often have a good amount of cash on him. Ms. Bonner also says that she and Mr. Bonner also dealt small amounts of grass in their community, mainly to those who used it recreationally. Ms. Bonner said she first thought her husband had fallen from his inner ear problem. Then she saw he had been bound with duct tape. According to the medical examiner, Franklin Bonner had signs of blunt force trauma to his body, but his cause of death was determined to be suffocation, most likely due to the duct tape placed over his mouth and nose. According to sources, the original investigation in 2009 did not produce any indictments, but there were a few clues investigators had to go on. Detectives said that they had phone records showing that Shirley Bumpus, Angel's grandmother, had called Franklin Bonner that morning. Angel's grandmother lived approximately 2 miles away and stated she knew Cookie, referring to Franklin Bonner. According to reports, Shirley Bumpus told authorities she purchased grass from the man known as Cookie on the day of his demise. Back then, Shirley Bumpus was considered the last person to see Franklin Bonner alive. She was interviewed in 2009 in connection with the incident and admitted at the time to buying grass from Franklin Bonner that day. Police found fingerprints on the duct tape, but could not match the fingerprints to anyone in the system back then. The case would eventually go cold, with no leads pointing to a suspect. Fast forward 9 years later. Authorities would question Angel and try to get her to share information about the crime. The only connection between Angel Bumpus and Franklin Bonner were her grandparents. Her grandmother was considered to be the last person to see the victim alive. However, Angel swore she had no knowledge of the crime. She had never been inside the Bonner's house and didn't even know Franklin Bonner. She explained to authorities and her defense team that she couldn't provide information on who committed the crime because she didn't know that information. Angel was 13 in 2009 and an 8th grade student. Angel was a small, petite girl, standing 5 feet tall and weighing just 80 pounds. She was a good student with a rough home life. Her grandparents kept a very strict environment. She recalls nothing about that day in January and was shocked when she was arrested for felony hit. The only evidence connecting Angel to the crime was 2 partial fingerprints that matched the sticky side of a piece of duct tape taken from Mr. Bonner. There were 9 other fingerprints and a hair found on the duct tape that did not match Angel Bumpus. Another breakthrough in the case came after Angel's arrest, when a federal prisoner convicted of a bank robbery came forward with information about his cousin, a man named Mallory Vaughn. His cousin claimed that Mallory allegedly told him he burglarized the Bonner home and was the person who bound Mr. Bonner, causing his demise. However, he later changed his story, stating he became aware of the case through Detective Carl Fields and was just trying to get his sentence reduced. However, Mallory Vaughn was arrested and charged as a co-defendant of Angel Bumbus. Let's take a quick moment to discuss who Detective Fields was. He was a detective originally handling the evidence in the Bonner case, but he made headlines for other reasons. In 2016, he was accused of inappropriately harassing a victim, tampering with evidence, and gross misconduct, according to the Chattanoogan.com. Criminal charges were filed against Detective Fields, and he was fired from the police department. However, the charges were eventually dropped due to lack of evidence. The legal issues with Detective Fields were supposedly part of the reason the case remained cold. According to sources, a new detective would take over the case after Franklin Bonner's family requested officials take another look at the cold case. That's when the authorities retested the fingerprints that were collected as evidence. Back to the arrest of Mallory Vaughn. A warrant was put out for his arrest in connection to the crime. According to news reports, detectives on the Bonner cold case said that the fingerprints they submitted for testing had resulted in a match to Mallory Vaughn. Mallory Vaughn proclaimed his innocence. When Mallory was arrested in 2018, they had not released Angel's name to the media. Because she was 13 when the crime happened, they could not release her name until they went to court. Mallory Vaughn would have been 26 years old at the time of Franklin Bonner's slaying. Angel Bumbus claimed to never have met Mallory Vaughn, which he confirmed. He claimed he had never met Angel either. Despite this, the two defendants would end up being tried together. Angel Bumbus and Mallory Vaughn's trial began in Hamilton County, Tennessee in the fall of 2019. Angel was represented by Andrea Haydock and Garth Best. Some would say the lack of evidence seemed to give Angel the confidence that she would be acquitted and her life would return to normal after the trial. Leading up to the trial, Angel talked about how hard it was to be accused of such a terrible crime. She said she did not commit the crime and had nothing to do with it. Angel said it was the worst year of her life, and the start of the trial was the worst day of her life. As the trial began, the prosecution presented the evidence of the fingerprints to the jury, claiming that the only way those fingerprints could be on the sticky side of the duct tape is if Angel was present at the time of the robbery. Angel's grandmother was called to testify. When she was asked if she saw Franklin Cookie Bonner the day of January 16, 2009, she denied seeing him or even talking to him. I believe that her contradictory testimony may have suggested that there was something to hide. I don't understand why Angel's grandmother changed her original statement. The defense would go on to present the evidence that 9 other fingerprints were also present on that duct tape. They hoped to cast doubt that Angel was there when the incident occurred. According to the defense, Angel was at school that day of the fatal home invasion. They told the jury that Angel arrived home around 3 in the afternoon. Angel's defense would argue that would have only left 2 hours for Angel to walk the 2 miles to the Bonner's home and commit the crime, then leaving before his wife got home around 5 that evening. According to reports, Angel's defense was prohibited from entering a phone call between Angel's brothers into evidence in which the crime was discussed. The brothers, who were incarcerated, discussed the charges against Angel and made statements like, "Think about it," and other vague wording that could have cast suspicion on them possibly being involved. While this evidence may have been beneficial to Angel's case, it could have also implicated her in a family robbery conspiracy. It was prohibited as hearsay. To explain the fingerprints on the duct tape, the defense would call their key witness to the stand, Angel's grandfather. He testified that Angel often helped him in the garage and played with rolls of duct tape. According to the testimony, Angel's grandfather did handyman work for Franklin Bonner often and may have possibly left duct tape at his home. Sources also revealed that the duct tape with the fingerprints had been destroyed in the years that the case went cold, which means the fingerprints could not be re-examined to ensure the accuracy of the forensic examination. There was only a photograph of the duct tape that was shown as evidence. Angel wanted to get on the stand and testify on her own behalf, but her attorney would advise her against it. As for Mallory Vaughn, his attorney said his client cooperated with the investigation. Mallory was someone who was also questioned in the initial investigation back in 2009, but they had nothing to link him to the crime. His attorney said none of the evidence from the scene is tied to his client. Mallory's defense said that the informant was not telling the truth about the confession Mallory had made regarding his involvement in the Bonner case. Both sides would make their closing arguments and rest their case. On October 3rd, 2019, the jury deliberated for almost 5 hours and returned verdicts in the trial against Mallory Vaughn and Angel Bumbus. Mallory Vaughn was found not guilty and acquitted. Angel Bumbus was found guilty on both counts, felony first-degree hit and aggravated robbery. After the verdict was read, Angel became emotional and cried as the judge spoke. She walked over to the officer so she could be taken away to prison. She no longer wanted to stay in court. She said loudly, "I'm never about to see my kids again." Angel was escorted out of the courtroom. In November of 2019, Angel was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole plus 8 years for the robbery charge. She wouldn't have been eligible for parole until 2079, when she would have been 84 years old. Angel Bumbus appealed her conviction, but the appeal process got delayed due to the pandemic. A Change.org petition was created seeking support in Angel's appeal process. According to the petition on Change.org, only 12 of 150 ridges of a fingerprint have to match for the forensic examiner to determine it is a match. I guess it's safe to say that the validity of fingerprint evidence may be questionable, to say the least. The petition collected close to 900,000 signatures as of September 1st. Also, something of great concern in this case is the fact that Angel was only 13 years old when the crime would have occurred. Angel was tried as an adult despite being a juvenile at the time of the horrific incident. Supporters of Angel also believe that her original attorneys did not provide effective counsel. Some supporters felt like they missed certain opportunities that could have proven Angel's innocence. There is a Facebook group dedicated to seeking justice for Angel and reuniting her with her children. In July of 2022, Angel's new attorney filed a motion for a new trial. Just at the beginning of this month, a judge granted the motion. There were a lot of elements as to why a new trial was granted. According to TimeFreePress.com, the order that was granted and signed by the judge said, "The court agrees that the cumulative effect of errors by the court and the parties support the granting of a new trial." The judge vacated Angel's conviction and set the case back on the trial docket. A status hearing has been scheduled for October 7th. Her defense is currently either preparing for a new trial or an appeal. While many feel Angel's conviction was a gross miscarriage of justice, let's not forget about the victim and his family. Franklin Bonner was a lifetime resident of Chattanooga. He was a husband, father, and grandfather. He was adored and loved by his family and friends. He was employed by the city of Chattanooga for 31 years before he retired. If Angel Bumpus is innocent, sadly, Franklin Bonner's relatives have not received justice or any of the closure they deserve. I am praying for them and all who are involved in this tragic and senseless loss of life. My deepest and sincerest condolences to the family. May Franklin Cookie Bonner continue to rest in peace. Fam, tell me your thoughts on this story. Do you believe in Angel Bumpus's innocence? What about her family's ties to the case and to the victim? Tell me your thoughts below. I want to hear from you in this one. Alright guys, that's it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 Times, and I'm out.
What's going on, YouTube fam? This your boy Tony 2 Times, and we back with another episode of Hood Tales, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in the case. Y'all keep up with me. It's a lot of information. For all the day one fam, y'all already know it's all love. Thanks for tuning back into another episode. If you're new to the channel and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Let's get right into the story. Online dating has been the wave since it became so easy to send a message or DM a person. It's convenient for most who might be a little bit shy or not big on going out in the nightlife. I remember when I was a little younger, it was cool to see a nice young lady you was feeling, approach her, and try your hardest to get a smile from her or some conversation. Then you knew you could probably get the number. But it's definitely different right now. People are on edge when outside, so you gotta be careful, even trying to holler at a female or to approach one. So when an individual is looking for companionship, they go on dating sites, make a profile, and hope for the best. The thing is though, you never know who you are talking to or inviting to meet up with, as it's hard to really get to know a person from behind a screen. You might be looking for love, but whole time they are looking for something else. And on this episode of Hood Tales, we will be taking it to Ohio to discuss a case of a young man's search for companionship that turned fatal. Back in 2018, 27-year-old Meshack Cornwall was living in Garfield Heights, a suburb on the outskirts of Cleveland. The only child of his mother, Miss Jacqueline Harrigan. The mother and son were originally from St. Croix, the Virgin Islands, but Jacqueline eventually relocated to the States, where she went to school and became a nurse. The part of town they lived in was nice and quiet. Meshack had a room in the basement, pretty much stayed to himself as far as his social life went. He went to work every day at his job, by the airport, at a rental-car company. The young man and his mother were super close, but Miss Jacqueline did a lot of traveling, leaving Meshack at their home. In November 2018, he decided to set up a dating profile on POF, or Plenty of Fish, and eventually connected with a young lady named Shakira Graham. The two talked online for a minute to try to get to know each other better before they decided to meet up in person at Meshack's house. That day was Thursday, December 13th. Miss Jacqueline left that following morning to go out of town with her sister. Before leaving, she went to say bye to her son in the basement. She noticed he had company, but just spoke and left out. She would call and check on Meshack from time to time, and everything seemed fine. But Shakira wasn't only just dealing with Meshack from the dating site. She also was dealing with another man nicknamed Pace, in which they had linked up about 5 times at his home on Grayton Road in Cleveland Heights. On December 15th, 2018, Pace was chilling with Shakira and decided to contact another young lady he met off POF. He set everything up for the three to link up that night at his house. When the young lady arrived, everything was going smooth. Pace's roommate was also there, who we would call Jay. Everybody was drinking, smoking, having a good time. When later into the evening, Shakira got frustrated about the situation and stated she was leaving. The other young lady stated she wanted to go because she felt uncomfortable with the men by herself. But Shakira stated, "You don't want to go, do what I'm about to do." A car pulled up and she left. Later that night, Shakira came back to Pace's house, but this time she was holding up car keys as she was driving a gold 2009 Honda Accord. She was in a better mood. She also had some grass, a bottle of drink, a game system, electronics, and a wooden box with 2 guns inside. She was trying to sell. The roommates wasn't fazed at all and asked no questions. They just all continued to party. Eventually, Shakira and Jay left in the car she came in. They went to grab some product to keep the party going. Jay noticed some cell phones and a broken computer in the back seat of the whip, but paid it no mind. As they headed to a motel room, after chilling for a minute, Shakira gave Jay a few cell phones and some grass. He left the room and went to a local Walmart to sell the phones. On December 17th, 2018, Miss Jacqueline returned to Ohio and was picked up from the airport. As she got home, she walked through the side door, which opened to the basement stairway, up to the kitchen. Surprised, she saw Meshack laying on the bottom of the steps. Thinking he had fallen, she rushed to her son and noticed blood was all around him. Realizing, unfortunately, Meshack was already gone. As the family called police, they came to the home to investigate, noticing the young man had been shot multiple times, but it wasn't any forced entry to the house. Miss Jacqueline, in shock, couldn't give much information, only that her son was with a young lady when she left. She talked to him after that on December 16th. Police asked questions in the neighborhood, but no one saw or heard anything. Eventually, Miss Jacqueline noticed items missing from the home. Her son's gaming system, a computer, 2 blicks, and a 2009 Honda that her son drove. As the investigation continued, authorities talked to Meshack's job, in which they stated he worked his whole shift on December 16th and clocked out about 11 p.m. Surveillance footage in the area by his house showed Meshack driving after midnight on the 17th. More questions would come out about Shakira, as one of Meshack's friends gave detectives her social media page. After realizing Meshack was supposed to work on the 17th but never showed up, his phone records showed he was texting Shakira when he got off work. She referred to him as her boyfriend and gave him the address she was at on Grayton Road, telling him to come pick her up. That's the same night she was at the house with Pace and Jay. Police attempted to track down Shakira, went to her home, but she was MIA. And Meshach's car was nowhere to be found as well. The next day, detective spoke to Shakira and told her the situation with Meshach. And what she stated, she knew the young man, stayed the night at his home, but haven't seen him since that day. She also stated he wasn't her boyfriend, but a man named Jeremy was. Police got a warrant for the young lady's phone records. It showed her and Meshach text from 11:07 p.m. to 11:43. After that, Shakira called Pace and texted Jeremy that same day. The missing car was found on Willowhurst Road in Cleveland as police went to the vehicle and noticed surveillance in the area. It showed a man parked the car around 10:30 p.m. on December 17th, then walked to the Cleveland motel. Police then went to the motel to ask questions. They showed detective surveillance footage with Shakira and Jay checking into a room. Police also found Meshach's credit cards that same day, thrown out on the street in Cleveland Heights. They found Jay and showed him the footage from the motel and him selling cell phones at Walmart that was stolen from Meshach's house. He quickly informed them Shakira gave him the phones, let him drive the car, and about the night, she showed back up to him and Pace's house waving car keys with drinks and items in her hand. He stated he never asked any questions and just thought she was using the dude's car, who also gave her some money. Putting the pieces together, detectives alleged Meshach picked up Shakira from Pace's house, drove her to his home, where she eventually robbed and shot the young man, taking items in the car before heading back to Pace's house like nothing ever happened. A few months later, in March 2019, Shakira was indicted on one count of aggravated hit, robbery, theft, and assault. Jay was hit with receiving stolen property. Shakira pleaded not guilty to all charges. As the case made the trial, the state called Pace, Jay, and other people to testify. Miss Jacqueline was also there and spoke out, stating she left home and everything was fine. Came home and her life was shattered after finding her son at the bottom of the steps, stating she never had any trouble from her son. They were very close. He loved to laugh, go to work, play video games, and stayed to himself. Shakira would listen with a blank face before the state presented all the evidence. Eventually, Shakira was found guilty on all charges and was sentenced to life in prison with the eligibility of parole in 25 years. After losing her only son, Miss Jacqueline relocated to Columbus, Ohio in 2019, got married in 2021, but unfortunately, on January 16th, 2022, at just 55 years old, she would pass away as well. Rest in peace to Meshach and Miss Jacqueline. I send my deepest prayers and condolences to their family. Meshach seemed like the prime example of a young man, working, staying out of trouble, and to himself. He did nothing wrong but look for companionship. It's sad when you can lose your life for just trying to find someone to kick it with. As for Shakira, it seems she liked to party and hang with different men or POF. But in certain environments, having more can equal trouble. It seemed like most dudes she hung with didn't have much or show much. But Meshach and his mother had a nice home, cars, and nice things, causing Shakira to look at him as a come-up and literally throw her whole life away for some cell phones, an Xbox, computer, $200 worth of grass, drink, and to joyride in that man's car for a couple days. It's sad when the value of life is made that cheap. Bro probably would have gave her some bread if she would have asked, but instead, she shattered her whole family and has to sit and reflect on that for a minute. So remember, we got to succeed not to fail, so we won't be just another hood tale. Yeah, man, crazy story. Rest in peace to Meshach. Rest in peace to his mother, Miss Jacqueline. Crazy situation. I don't know what shorty was thinking about. She ain't get nothing out the situation for real but a few dollars, some grass, some drinks. Basically a party and a good time. But I ain't gonna talk y'all head off with this one. Y'all heard the story, leave it in the comments. Remember to definitely be respectful. I appreciate you if you made it to the end. This is another episode of Hood Tales. This your boy Tony 2 times. It's all love, fam. I'm out. What's going on, YouTube, fam? This your boy Tony 2 times, and we back with another episode of Hood Tales, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch the video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in the case. For all the day one fam, welcome back. Y'all already know it's all love. Thanks for tuning back into another episode. If you're new to the channel and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Let's get right into the story. Being in love can be a beautiful thing. Finding that person that makes you feel complete and like nothing else in the world matters but what y'all got going on. And if you are lucky enough to bring a life into the world with that person, it can make that bond even stronger. But just like most things in life, nothing or nobody is perfect. All relationships have problems, and everyone handles their issues in different ways. Some people decide to walk away if tempers are at a rise and come back later to resolve the issues. Some couples fight all day and feel as though there's nothing wrong with that because, hey, that's just their love language. But the thing about being in love is you can also fall out of love. And if one person in the situation still has feelings and the other one is trying to move on, things get crazy. Fellas, as a man, depending how you are, and if you have a baby mother, we all know dudes who feel like once they put a baby in a woman, they got them for life. Some dudes get jealous just thinking about someone else around their kid. To the point I remember breaking up with a girl because she was letting her baby father run her life from prison with 45 years, telling her what to do and who she can be with. It just wasn't worth it to me. As men and women, we got to know if something is over, it's done. Don't go crazy when that person decides to move on. The flip side to that is some circles might be so small that they end up dealing with someone you know, and some people's emotions won't let them see that happen. Now it becomes super crazy because a person feels disrespected. And on this episode of Hood Tales, we will be taking it to Linden, New Jersey to discuss a case of a man that snapped when he found out his homie and baby mother were dealing with each other. According to sources, back in 2017, 24-year-old Shanzy Abernathy was trying to figure out life with a child and living in Jersey, just trying to make a way. The man was God-fearing and most say was cool and laid back. Shanzy's homie and neighbor was a man named Alfonso Pearson, who lived right next door to Shanzy and his family in the 800 block of Cleveland Avenue in Linden. The two families were close, spoke to each other every day, and the two men even hung out and had some of the same friends. But around about fall 2017, things would go left, and the two men would start beefing. After Shanzy started to feel like Alfonso, or Al, what everyone called him, was creeping with his baby mother behind his back. Shanzy felt disrespected. That word was going around that his homie and neighbor was dealing with his child's mother. The two families remained cordial, and allegedly, Shanzy played it cool. The men would have a few words back and forth, but that was about it, because at the time, he didn't have any real evidence the two were seeing each other. The young man still had a relationship in some sense with the young lady, and on December 11th, 2017, Shanzy would make a mistake that changed the lives of everyone around him. While he was around his child's mother, he went through her phone and saw text messages from Al and her. The young man was heated and felt betrayed by both parties. Allegedly at this time, he made up his mind he was going to deal with Al, letting everyone in the circle know he was looking for the man. As friends tried to intervene, and tell Shanzi to let it go, he told one of them, "We don't fight round here. When I see Al, it's on sight, and I'm gonna bust him for disrespecting me." 9 days would go by with Shanzi's father trying to talk to him and reason with him, letting the young man know just leave it alone and leave it in God's hand. But he wasn't trying to hear that. He was trying to see Al face to face. And on December 20th, 5 days before Christmas, the neighbors and once homies were running to each other right outside their homes. Shanzi's pops once again told him, let it go. It wasn't worth it. And don't approach Al, before he went outside. But it wasn't nothing he could do about it. Shanzi allegedly approached Al, and the two men got into a heated exchange about the situation. Then moments later, in broad daylight, shots went off. Neighbors and witnesses quickly called local police to report loud pops coming from the block. Police pulled up to the neighborhood in the 800 block of Cleveland Avenue around about 12:45 p.m. to find a man laying outside his home, suffering from a gunshot wound to the chest. The victim was rushed to a local hospital, where unfortunately, he didn't survive. He was later identified by family and friends as 27-year-old Alfonso Pearson, or Al. As investigation started, witnesses told police about an altercation and a man fleeing the scene after the shooting. Al's mother stated she heard commotion, heard a shot, and seen her son grab his chest and fall back. People who knew the situation between the two neighbors let officers know, and they quickly realized Shanzi wasn't nowhere to be found. The next day, a warrant was put out for the young man on first-degree murder charges and weapon charges. Shanzi would eventually turn himself in that same day, and allegedly in an interview with police admitted what he did to Al. The two families were in shock and couldn't believe things went left between the friends. Shanzi was taken into custody, and eventually the case would make it to trial. Witnesses would testify that the young man told everybody when he saw Al, it wasn't going to be a fight, but a blick going off. They also stated Shanzi texted Al and told him he had something for him when he called him. Prosecutors argued the young man had 9 days after sending the text messages between his child's mother and Al to let it go, but instead he went to find a blick and planned for a hit. Shanzi spoke out to Al's family before sentencing, telling them he was sorry and the two were really brothers. None of this was ever supposed to happen. Due to the circumstances, some feeling like the young man acted off of jealous rage, Shanzi was found guilty, but not of first-degree murder, but first-degree manslaughter, and sentenced to 24 years in prison. Al's family spoke out, saying no matter how much time he got, nothing would bring Al back, and they were confused how someone they spoke to every day would do this. Rest in peace to Al. I send my deepest prayers and condolences to his family. I know most people will hear this and feel like how Shanzi felt, that his friend crossed the line with his baby mother, but despite what we think, that's not a death sentence. You could have just cut both parties off and just take care of your child. Because if she was that cruddy enough to deal with your homie, she wasn't worth it in the first place. The crazy thing is, what I would never understand about situations like this, you take the life of the dude, you go to jail, and the woman is still free, out here with the next man and your kid. So what you tried to prevent from happening, happens anyway. Don't react off emotions, because the best revenge is success and the art of keeping it moving if it's not meant to be. So remember, we gotta succeed, not to fail, so we won't be just another hood tale. Man, it's a crazy story, you feel me? Two homeboys, it went left. I know a lot of y'all gonna say, well, Al shouldn't have crossed that line and dealt with his baby mother. But I mean, at the end of the day, we don't know the situation. People be in volatile relationships. She might have been done with bro. You see what I'm saying? And I ain't saying this right, man. But like I said, at the end of the day, that don't mean take a life. You know, you just got to take that as an L. You got to cut them off and feel like, look, both of them did me wrong. they cruddy. I ain't even dealing with them no more. I'm going to just take care of my child. But instead, he got 24 years in prison, and another man lost his life, and the two families who were cool, now they got to live with that. But y'all already know, man. Leave it in the comments. This is another episode of Hood Tales. I appreciate you if you made it to the end. This your boy Tony 2 times. Love, fam. I'm out. What's going on, YouTube fam? This your boy Tony 2 times, and we back with another episode of Hood Tales, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in the case. Make sure y'all keep up with me. It's a lot of information in this situation. For all the day one fam, thanks for tuning back into another episode. Y'all already know it's all love. I hope y'all had a happy holidays. If you're new to the channel and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Let's get right into the story. Street justice, retaliation, get back, whatever you want to call it, is when someone decides to take matters into their own hands and take a life or multiple to either send a message or to get even if they feel played. Some people go all out when they feel like a line has been crossed, or people they feel should be loyal break that bond. But in certain cities all over America, you might have whole families or generations that rule with an iron fist, and everybody in the community know they are not the people to cross because the whole bloodline will come get at you. And staying out of that mix of individuals like that should come second nature. But it's more common for people like that to play chess and move the pieces on the board. Everybody is expendable, even family members, friends, associates, and that's a dangerous group of people. On this episode of Hood Tales, we will be taking it to Gary, Indiana, to discuss a family that felt like revenge, loyalty, and respect was worth sacrificing whoever. According to sources, back in 2015, 33-year-old Jerry Woods and 37-year-old David Johnson, the fourth, also nicknamed Pops, had a big blended family. Jerry had 4 kids entering the relationship. Pops had 3 of his own, and as the two started having children together, they had 3 more, for a total of 10. The family was real tight and didn't use the term stepmom or dad at all. Everybody was just part of the fam. Pops was said to be the type of man that demanded complete loyalty and respect from everyone in his circle and stood on principles and morals of his family being number one, and instilled that in all his kids. If they got out of line or didn't listen, there was consequences. Jerry, his wife, also had to fall in line. The family was known to Gary as the ones not to play with. Not only was they super deep, but they also was known to get active. And one situation will prove how far they was willing to go. Allegedly, Jerry wanted to show her love and respect for Pops, who had been shot in the face 10 years earlier by a man named Alfred Wiley, leaving the man partially blind, and Pops wanting to get back for years. Jerry found out that Alfred was back in the area after being out of town. With that information, Pops enlisted the help of one of his sons to slide on the man. At the time, 19-year-old David Johnson V, nicknamed Dooney. The young man already had been trained to go by his father and stepmother, so when they put a blick in his hand and Pop said, "Let's ride," he did what he was told. On April 28th, 2015, the two went to Pop's old neighborhood, parked, and waited to see if they saw his enemy. They were in the 5600 block of East 3rd Avenue, sitting in Jerry's van with a .38 revolver, when 46-year-old Alfred was spotted riding a bike. Pops allegedly grabbed the blick from his son. Once Alfred peeped the move, he tried to run, but he was caught in front of a house in the neighborhood and unfortunately shot in the head. He would not survive. As police got to the scene, no one said anything and the case would go still. Knowing that the hit would make the family hot, Pops decided to get rid of the burner and pulled up on an 18-year-old young man and family friend from the neighborhood named Ariane Lackey and told Shorty to hold the gun for them and don't say anything to nobody. But that mistake would turn fatal. As the father and son returned home, Pops told Jerry that the business was handled, and they talked with her telling him he made the right move. Everything seemed cool, and they felt as though they got away with the hit. But about 1 month later, the family heard something they didn't like. That Ariane allegedly shot at another friend of the family and some street beef with the same blick they gave him to hold. The family felt betrayed and crossed. The streets was also claiming Ariane was plotting to break into Pops and Jerry's house. The husband and wife felt as though something had to be done. The couple went and bought another blick and got family and friends to help them find Ariane to try to get the 38 back. Jerry Pops, a family friend named Keontae Kaysen, who was 21 at the time, jumped in the family van. Right behind them was Dooney and another family friend, 26-year-old Michelle Hughes, that jumped in another whip as well to track down the young men. They ended up at a local hotel where Ariane was at in a room with his little brother, 16-year-old Antonio Lackey. With 2 cars outside, Pops told the women to stay as him and the men went to the room. When they knocked on the door, Ariane was surprised to see Pops. They were also surprised that his little brother was with him and he wasn't alone. They started questioning the young man about the 38 and also confronting him about shooting at a family friend. Ariane stated he didn't have a gun anymore and he sold it. That made Pops heated because it was already a body on there. The young man said he could get it back, but by this time, the man snatched Ariane and his little brother Antonio up and they all walked them outside to the car with no shoes on. The brothers tried to stay together, but they were both put in separate vehicles. They headed to the home of the man. Ariane said he sold the blick too, but no one answered the door. After that, Jerry and Pops decided to drive the brothers to a wooded area called The Farm in the 7,000 block of Grand Avenue in Hobart, Indiana. Allegedly, as they made the brothers get out the car, the others watched as Jerry and Keontae walked the two deeper into the woods. They told them both to kneel down and face each other and say their goodbyes before shots went off, hitting both the young men in their heads. As they got back to the vehicles, it was stated no one should ever cross the family. They all discussed that the people in the vehicles were the only ones who knew what happened and not say anything about the situation at all. As everyone made it home, for a few days, things seemed normal until the Lackey brothers' family started sending out messages and asking people in the community how they saw them, including members of Pops and Jerry's family as well. But everybody played it cool. 3 weeks later, some people were going fishing and discovered human remains in the trail. The brothers were identified by teeth as Ariane and Antonio Lackey. The family was notified with the news. They told police the last place the brothers were at was a hotel. The surveillance footage was pulled, showing them being led to the car. Pops and Jerry were identified from the video. As the investigation started, also other members as well. 3 months after the hit, in the 700 block of North Henry Street in Gary, Indiana, at the family's home, Hobart police, a few other agencies, and SWAT raided Jerry's and Pop's home about 5 a.m. David Johnson III, Pop's dad, was arrested, Pops himself, and his son Dooney. But Jerry, Keontae, and Michelle were not around. Michelle and Keontae were picked up first. 5 months later, Jerry would be tracked down all the way in Dallas, Texas. All involved were charged with kidnapping and murder of the two brothers. Jerry and Pops were also charged with the hit on Alfred as well. As the case made its way to trial, almost all parties involved took a plea for their cooperation, getting lesser sentences of like 8 and 14 years. Even Jerry was ready to talk, but it wouldn't work. With all the evidence, she was found guilty of all charges and sentenced to 120 years in prison. Pops was found guilty of all charges as well and received a 190-year prison sentence. Rest in peace to Alfred, Antonio, and Ariane. I send my prayers and condolences to all families affected by this situation. This was a crazy story of revenge and family loyalty. And for the little brother Antonio, he lost his life for something he wasn't even involved in. Guilty by association because of his big brother. It seemed like the family was on some mob type time. But you can't trust everybody you do dirt with. When them peoples get to throwing out their time, loyalty goes out the window. I'm going to leave the moral of the story up to y'all on this one. Remember, leave it in the comments, but definitely be respectful. And we got to succeed, not to fail. So we won't be just another hood tale. Man, y'all heard the story. I ain't going to talk y'all head off, man. Leave it in the comments about this one. Let me know what y'all think about the situation and what the moral of the story should be. Y'all already know it's all love, fam. This is another episode of Hood Tales. It's your boy Tony 2 times. I'm out. What's going on, YouTube, fam? This your boy Tony 2 times, and we back with another episode of Hood Tales, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in the case. If you're new to the fam, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a video. Let's get right into the story. The self-defense law is a hard thing to prove. You got certain states like Florida who had a stand your ground law, meaning if you feel threatened and someone is trying to physically harm you, you can defend yourself, even if that means taking a life. But in some places, it's none of that. They expect you to call the police and not take matters into your own hands. And a self-defense claim after catching a body is something hard to prove. If it wasn't a lot of witnesses saying that the person you hurt was trying to hurt you first. Let's take it a little deeper. What if the person you are accused of hitting is your homie? It's sad that with guns and everybody having egos and trying to be an alpha male, you can barely trust your own peoples. Some people will have a disagreement, might even throw hands, go grab a drink and squash it. But when blicks are involved, it can turn a minor situation into shots going off. But if a person knocks you off over a few words, is that really your homie? And on this episode of Hood Tales, we will be discussing the case in which a man killed his friend, and was it self-defense or just a hit? According to sources, two friends, both from Chicago, went to Gary, Indiana to link up with some females and go on a double date. The men were at the time 21-year-old Larry Boston and 20-year-old Charles Golden, who were both childhood friends. The homeboys were with another associate who was from Indiana and were driving them through the city in a Nissan Altima. They headed to a barbershop to get fresh for the date. Allegedly, Larry and Charles would start a small back and forth about who would get their hair cut first, causing a little tension, but nothing heavy. Once they all left the shop and got back in the whip, things would get crazy when the two friends would start trying each other, arguing about stupid stuff, a witness later stated. But it got real when they both started threatening to kill each other. Allegedly by this time, according to sources, Larry was sitting in the back seat and Charles in the front passenger side. As the back and forth got more heated, allegedly, Larry upped the blick and let off one shot, hitting Charles in the forehead on 47th Street and Broadway in Gary. The driver shot, jumped out the car without putting it in park. Also, Larry hopped out the back and tried to pull Charles' body out before running away from the scene. The driver ran to a nearby gas station and told them to call police and waited for them to arrive. As local authorities got to the scene, they found Charles suffering from one shot to the head and would unfortunately not survive. The driver, who now was a witness, told police about the argument the two friends had at the barbershop. He told them he met both men about 2 years ago through a mutual homeboy, and said Charles and Larry always argued, even played fight, but it never got that serious. He told police he felt like he was used and the murder was premeditated by Larry, as he waited until they got to an isolated spot and shot Charles, stating Larry tried to dump his body, even jumped in the driver's seat when he hopped out, but ran when he got to 47th Avenue and Adams Street. Allegedly, to get back home to Chicago, Larry carjacked the lady in Indiana, and about 10:45 a.m., a chase was stopped as Indiana police got on his heels. The pursuit would go all the way into Chicago, with Larry finally being grabbed, hiding in the attic in his south side of Chicago home, and took back to Indiana to face charges of murder, carjacking, and robbery. But as the case made the trial, Larry's lawyers pointed out a case of self-defense, stating he only shot Charles because he thought he was about to shoot him. His attorneys argued it was guns in the car, and Larry thought he saw Charles reaching for the center console to grab a blick. Larry would take the stand, stating he was in fear for his life, and that Charles was calling him names and threatening him the whole ride. So when he saw him reach, he grabbed his blick and shot. But as the state's prosecutors got a turn to prove their case, they painted a different picture altogether. They alleged Larry was mad about the argument, waited till they got to a remote location, and simply shot Charles, as there was no gun found in the center console or on Charles. The only two guns found was a gun on the driver when police searched him at the scene, and the gun later found in the area in Indiana that was the murder weapon that Larry allegedly threw out the window after carjacking the lady for her whip. They also showed pictures of the inside of the car and argued that Larry was trying to dump Charles' body, cover his tracks, and make it back to Chicago. And that's not the action of a man claiming self-defense. Closing arguments came from both sides, with Larry's lawyers asking did Charles make Larry kill him, and that the prosecution was only focused on what happened after the shooting and not before. But with the evidence and the driver's statement, Larry was found guilty on the hit of his friend and sentenced to 73 years in prison. Rest in peace to Charles. I send my prayers and condolences to his family. What do y'all think? This was a self-defense situation, or a person mad about an argument and just decided to smoke his mans? Let me know. But moral of this story, watch who you call your friend. That's a strong word. A real homie would never kill you, but simply, if it's that serious, cut you off if they not feeling your vibes no more, because they don't want to see no harm come your way. But for a day one homie to knock off his friend over an argument makes me think he never liked yo from the first place. Watch the company you keep. The same person you call brother will have your mother crying. So remember, we gotta succeed, not to fail, so we won't be just another hood tale. Man, it's a crazy story. First and foremost, rest in peace Charles, 20 years old, lost his life. And I don't know what their situation was before they left Chicago, but y'all heard the story. They said they was going to link up with some females, and allegedly, they just was going back and forth the whole time. Maybe it was already some tension in the air. Maybe they were just saying where it was going to go from here. Maybe Charles thought it was just going to be a fist fight or whatever. But unfortunately, allegedly, Larry had other things on his mind. And sometimes it be like that, man. You feel me? Like, we in a time and age, everybody not just going to step out in the street and throw hands, If people got a weapon on them, they going to shoot. You feel me? Dudes ain't out here lifting no weights trying to fight everybody off drinks, grass, you feel me, pills, all kind of stuff. So, unfortunately, situations like this go left. But if that's your homie, I just feel like it's other ways around that. Even if you be like, you know what, bro, after this, I ain't even rocking with you no more. You go your separate ways, I go my separate ways. Sometimes you just gotta leave it like that. Sometimes you outgrow a person, but to take their life crazy, man. But yeah, let me know what y'all think about this one in the comments. You feel me? I appreciate you if you made it to the end. Y'all already know it's all love, fam. This your boy Tony 2 times. This another episode of Hood Tales. I'm out.